Hello, Pallavi Dean. How are you?
I'm pretty good, Simon. How are you?
Good, I'm fantastic. Thank you very much. Welcome along to episode 3 of Space Design and Build, where I have a very good friend of mine. I think we've been friends over the past year. Wonderful to work with you on our latest, one of our latest projects. It was 6 months ago that we completed it, and you've been moving on to a lot more projects from what I can see. But for the purpose of my guests, for those that don't know, shameful, don't know who this lovely lady would be, please introduce yourself.
First of all, yes, thank you for having me. I think our COVID project, I like to call it, would be a fantastic case study because we did everything virtually, but we'll get into that through this conversation. I'm Pallavi Dean. I am the founder and creative director of Roar. We are a boutique agency that does interior design, architecture, and product design. We're based in Dubai, UAE, and we have a small satellite office in the UK, in London as well.
Oh, do you? I didn't know that. Let's start with London. So what kind of things are you doing in London?
We're doing a very high-end residential property in Mayfair. We've done another residential project there, and it's kind of where my family's from. So it's interesting to still have a couple of design projects there. So it's nothing big. It's not an office with 100 employees in it, but it's picking up these key projects every now and then and just having somewhere to service it from.
Is that with clients that are based in Dubai that have assets in the UK?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, makes sense.
Or clients that we've done houses or offices for in other parts of the world. We did a fantastic property for the Tanzanian president's daughter in Dubai first, and then their home in Tanzania, and then they bought a home in the UK and they wanted us to do it. So it's just kind of an extension of existing clients.
And because you're in design and consultancy, and it's been expedited over the past 15 months, everything can be done remotely. Yes, you have to have an element or an individual on the ground for exactness and preciseness within the drawings and the as-built, but you've got the luxury of being able to do and portray your designs globally. What's the most extravagant project you've been involved in location-wise?
Oh my God, location-wise. Look, we've done everything from like Tanzania to India to Saudi. I think Saudi is quite exotic as well, right? But I think location-wise, I'm a UAE girl. I was born and raised here. So for me, if anyone had to pick like my top 10 locations, Dubai would be number one up there. I know it sounds cheesy, but it is my home.
What's your favorite genre?
Tricky question because we're multidisciplinary. We do everything from workplace to residential to hospitality to, now religious spaces. We're working on our first mosque. I do love education. Yeah, it's very exciting. I love education design because I think I'm an academic at heart, and I think education spaces bring a lot of learnings from workplace architecture or interior design, but also some learnings from hospitality design. So I really enjoy education spaces.
And they're all different. I mean, we obviously want to try and make offices as different as possible, but to an extent, furniture can be furniture. It's the placement that's different. But when you go into F&B and when you go into retail, they have their own stamp. They're all completely different designs, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And also there's a science behind each of these fields, right? It's not that if you design a restaurant, you could apply exactly those learnings to retail, because retail is about footfall, it's about cost per square foot. F&B is similar, it's about how do you get that table turnover rate. So I think it's understanding the science, and I say this a lot with our designs. It's very evidence-based in the workplace. It's about productivity, or how you rotate staff to make your real estate sweat harder. So it's understanding that kind of the numbers behind the pretty pictures is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you become the person you are today? What inspired you to get into design? I know you've got a very sweet story behind this, and then tell us a bit more about your why and your passion.
Yeah, that's a good question. Look, my father had a contracting business. So kind of growing up, he was always sketching or, building toilets or doing like little projects on the side. And he never graduated from architecture school. So as any good parent would, they want to live vicariously through their children. He pushed me in that direction. He was like, let's go to art class. Why don't you do this? Here's a new Lego set. So it kind of started as gameplay, which was interesting, but almost to rebel and protest. I didn't join architecture school. I started as a graphic designer. So I was like, I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. I'm going to do visual communications and multimedia.
A rebellious
And I remember,
author, you do surprise me.
uh, there we go. And I remember it was my first year in architecture and design school. You have a foundation year where everybody from interior design, architecture, multimedia, everybody does that first foundation year together. And all my professors, not one, but all of them, including the graphic design professors, looked at my work and they said, your work's a little bit three-dimensional. You sure you don't want to do architecture? And I was like, really? You as well? Has my father been paying you on the side? And I think that was a final push I needed. And I think it was the best decision I've ever made, because I mean, I live and breathe design. It's such an extension of who I am as a person. And I'm just very spatially aware. So I think, and again, in education, there's 4 different types of learners, and I tick all the boxes for spatial learner. So it's interesting.
And your why, what is it you live for? We already spoke about it. Each project is different, but you have this amazing presence in front of both clients and also contractors. You have to be that, you and your team have to be that go-between, but you're still very hands-on. So why are you still as hands-on as you are?
For me, Simon, I think people get into design for different reasons, right? It could be that you want to leave a legacy and your signature style and, create these projects. But for me, it's always about getting to the crux of the problem. And that is that empathy-based design. So you have to understand the needs, the problems, the desires of the people who use the space. And I don't think you could be this holistic designer if you just did that front-end concept and didn't see it through. And I also think that in the construction industry, right, there's quite a lot of negative culture where, I'm going to be at loggerheads with my contractor and I'm going to shout and scream on site, or I'm going to tell off a project manager. And I just think that's such a counterintuitive way to get stuff done. I think your client can be unreasonable, but it's about how you emotionally, intelligently manage them. And I find that being a part of the process, when things go to site, I'm able to manage that. And I really enjoy it. I enjoy really understanding why you're so irate today. What is the contractor's problem? And being that, I don't know, psychologist in the middle.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of my design.
I think you were with me anyway.
Honestly.
I think you said to me several times, bearing in mind my company's called Breathe, Simon, take a breath, just come.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, there were times when you'd call me, be what the heck, Pallavi? And I'd just be like, Simon, are you sure you want to talk to me like that? Let's just regroup. Call me back. And we had those moments.
But you're right. Everyone, the contractor and the designer has the same common goal. But we're the ones that have to make that success. With the greatest respect to the client, they say, here's the ingredients, right? Go ahead and actually cook it. And we've then got to bake it. So we have to have that congruency between the two of us.
Absolutely.
It was good fun though.
And I think it's also kind of, it was good fun. And that's what I just never understood, this friction-based kind of model. We're all on the same team, client included. I think the end goal is we all want the same thing. We want to be proud of our work. We want to make sure the client gets what they want. But I genuinely, and this is how I live my life as well, I think if you start with a place of deep empathy, really understanding where the other person comes from, you can resolve conflict much quicker. And I think you end up with a project or product that everyone's equally proud of, be it the client, be it the contractor, or be it the designer.
There's something that I love about design and build when you look at the space that's behind me. So this is Doha Tower, which is my favorite tower in Qatar. And this is how it's a Jean Nouvel design. And this is how it's received by the tenant. You can call it Cat A, you can call it Cat A+, because you could literally put your furniture down and you could start as long as you've got an internet connection. Zero acoustics, as you can imagine, with a Hunter Douglas glass ceiling and a Lindner Deepa, probably in the region of about $500 a square meter raised floor that isn't fit for purpose. However, to take this space and to turn it into something which we've done several times, and of course you've done several times, is the most amazing feeling I ever get when I walk onto a site. And when you see the video that you very kindly performed and edited on behalf of the client, I believe, it just, I wouldn't say it brought a tear to my eye, because that maybe sounds a little bit over dramatic. However, when you see that, and when you see where we were discussing the designs now 1 year ago, it's an amazing feeling. What do you feel when you see something come to fruition?
It's really interesting because we touched upon this earlier, and you said, oh, we're working virtually now, so you can pretty much operate remotely. But if you think about architects and designers, we've been working remotely since we graduated from university, because the idea is like a figment of your imagination. And then you go from 3D renders, and then you get to the actual kind of constructability. So if you think about it, the way we imagine, we've always had pies in the sky, kind of, and we visualize things. So it's easy to work remotely because, there's that remote connection there. For me, kind of walking in is an amazing feeling. But what's even more exciting is I love being there when the client walks in. I just love watching them react, because they're used to seeing two-dimensional drawings.
Yeah.
Or even if they see a visual, they don't really understand how a space is three-dimensionally. So watching them walk in and watching their expressions gives me true joy. But then even better is after 6 months or after a year, when they come back and tell me how the space has impacted their business, or how they've generated additional revenue because some clever, quick tips or tricks that we've done. I'll give you a small example. In McKinsey, when we worked on that project, we added a wellness room. And who would have thought COVID would have hit and all of that would have happened? But what a fantastic space to have now.
Yeah.
Stuff is going crazy in the world. I need to get away, do a 10-minute meditation, get my Calm app on. Brilliant. We built that and we baked that into the design. Or the maternity room that we added. The workplace has grown so much over the years, but we forget that, they're breastfeeding moms out there, and we have to cater and have these spaces so that they feel welcomed into the workforce. So it's thinking about these things. Almost there's a little bit of crystal ball gazing, sorry, not glazing. Look at me, I'm still thinking.
There's a bit of that as well.
A bit of that as well. But, thinking of those small kind of features within your design and then seeing how the clients react to it. I think that's why I do what I do.
It was probably one of the hardest projects I've done. I don't mean anything against Qatar, because it's been my home for 13 years. And it's maybe an impossible question to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I often see on social media yourself, Ink Interiors or Ink Group, you've got KPS, Summertown, who I know you've worked with in the past or maybe currently now. There are some phenomenal designs in the UAE, and I'm focusing on the UAE in particular. And it's no secret that a lot of multinationals, and a lot more multinationals in numbers, are in Dubai. They use that as their Middle East hub. That's just a fact.
Yep.
We have worked as an individual, both and as my organizations now, with some fantastic companies over the years. They are global leaders: Nestle, Nokia, WSP, and of course McKinsey and Company, just to name a few, which I'm very proud about. But the investment in somewhere like Qatar into the design is not the same, or the innovation within the design is not the same as it would be in Dubai. Can you put your finger on why that would be?
Look, I think Dubai was like that 20 years ago. We forget, like, in the history of countries, the UAE is a very young country, and it takes some time to define your design voice or to really establish your design identity. And only once you've done that, you can start experimenting. And Qatar has done a fantastic job. You walk through Qatar, and I love being in Qatar because you have architecture by Rem Koolhaas, Jean Nouvel. You go out in the desert, you have a, sculpture by Richard Serra. There's a hotel by Marcel Wonders. All of my favorite designers are working in that space. So I think now that Qatar is establishing its design identity, the museum from I Am Pi was, I think, in many ways the beginning of that. They will become more experimental. And I think McKinsey was a great case study, right? Because you would look at you'd look at the flow plate, and any other McKinsey office, possibly regionally, would be very linear. And that's the first thing we said. No, we want a dynamic flow plate. We want to look at the flag of Qatar, use those angles within the flag, and build the space around that kind of geometry. And there wasn't a pushback. They were like, wow, that's cool. Let's do it. And I think the flow plate that we were working on, we even created a tiered seating and a raised platform. Super challenging. And we were challenging each other as well, because I said to you, Simon, I want angled glass. You were like, okay, let me see what I can do to make that happen. You didn't say no.
After I went, oh no. Yes. But
internally,
the floor plate itself was angled. It wasn't a box. It wasn't a full floor. The gate where this is located is a very, very angular type setup architecturally. So it actually fed into your ethos and your concept.
Narrative. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important when you start with the design. Stop starting with what's my studio signature style. Oh, it's minimalism. Let me just make a minimalist space. You can't start there. You have to start with your context, your narrative, your client's needs, rather than just starting with, preconceived notion of what you think that space should be as a designer.
Yeah. And because we did the project remotely, so we had conversations with New York, we had conversations with London, Amsterdam, obviously Dubai, at some point with India, with Terry being in India, and to an extent, I think JP was maybe in South Africa at some point. Globally, literally, and then of course Qatar. I'm sure I had traveled, and I think I might have had a call in the UK at one point as well. But it was literally spanning 3 or 4 continents, which was just phenomenal. And what we were able to implement between us was 2 things that I'm actually becoming more and more passionate about. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how this might be a negative or a positive for projects going forward. Hopefully the positive. The first one was the virtual walkthrough. We did the augmented reality, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how you feel that maybe complicates or simplifies things. But the 2 that I was focusing on was more when we were doing our project meetings, we were able to have the 4-dimensional digital scan of the overall demise, in which every stakeholder at their own timeline could walk through the demise on a fortnightly or 4-weekly basis from start to finish. And that's the next stage that we want to take the scan to. We want to show the finished article for marketing. And secondly, it was about the online project collaboration and being able to comment on the drawings and annotate on the drawings, or accept and approve or reject the material submittals from a simple software program. I found it very informative. It was a bit of a dropping us in at the deep end, but that's what a pandemic does, because we couldn't get anyone on the ground from JLL, the project manager, and yourselves, and even RVT, who were obviously the MEP designer. How did you find that the project went from a coordination perspective using that technology? And is it the way forward?
It's interesting you ask that question. I don't think actually I'm going to be, I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. Nothing can ever replace human contact, okay? Or nothing can ever replace. Do you know how many times we went back and forth when we were choosing the carpet samples? It was waiting for you to courier something, me checking it against the fabric, sending it back to you. That was a cumbersome process. Had I been able to fly to Doha, we could have sorted that out in a week. Now, that's one aspect of it. So I don't think anything can ever replace human contact, human touch, or looking at things physically. Nothing can replace that. But I think it can cut down on a lot of unnecessary travel. So, that walkthrough, the virtual walkthrough, the process of annotating drawings, all of that can be done virtually. We don't need to have workshops in person to do that. So that part of it, there's some kind of process and respond kind of tasks. They work really well virtually, but in terms of the snagging, in terms of material selections, terms of what's snagging? But also in terms, Simon, you and I have never met in person.
No.
I mean, that's ridiculous. We know each other well. You share the same Scottish heritage as my husband.
I've known Richard for ages. He's from like the other end of the Glen.
Yes, but that's bizarre, because I feel like I know you, but we've never actually met. But building up social capital takes time. I'd met the McKinsey client, and I'd established a relationship with them before the pandemic kicked off. So I could leverage that social capital. But had we done this whole process virtually, would they really have trusted me on some of those out of the box decisions? Probably not, because you also get a sense of the person.
The same with us. If we were to say McKinsey want us to build it in Kuwait, which I've had many companies in Qatar saying that they've got a satellite office in Kuwait, for example, or even in Saudi, just over the border. Now that we can get there, can you manage that as a contractor, but we're not going to meet face to face, and we virtually project manage it? Probably not.
No. So I think it has its advantages. And I really think we did a lot of unnecessary travel previously, right? Workshops, meetings, we had a weekly meeting easily, all that kind of stuff, drawing annotations, coordination on small details can be done remotely. I would say 60% of the time, or maybe even 70% of the time. But I think you need 30% contact hours. That's important.
Yeah, you're never going to be able to replace that human factor, and that moves into kind of quite nicely the next sort of question and sort of subject is about where the offices are going now, which was the inspiration to start this kind of conversation podcast and YouTube, and having those conversations with people like Graham, who I did work with on Nokia, and he was here twice in Qatar. He didn't come. It was all remotely managed. And the same with people like Jonathan, who was on the previous episode. Where do you think the office is going with regards to design? We've all seen, particularly in a project that is obviously very dear to us both, in McKinsey, you have numerous areas, but you don't have technically a single closed office. Everything is shared and
Yeah.
collaborative. Where has the office gone in the last 10 years, and what has the pandemic done to that office evolution in the last 12 months?
Look, I think the pandemic has only accelerated some of the trends that we were seeing anyways. I don't think, there's never going to be a revolutionary change in a decade. It's not going to happen. If you look at the office in the 1970s to an office in 2021 now, there's been slight little modifications. Yes, we've dropped the cubicle, but some people still have the screens in place. The meeting room has gone from a very formal setting to a more informal setting. So I think those changes are within the margins of 10, 20%. And where is the office going? So there's a lot of talk about the liquid workforce, right? So people are going to want to work from home 2 days a week and then have touchdown spaces of 3 days a week. But this was happening anyways in America, right? People were living outside California. They had touchdown spaces. They were only coming into work 3 days, cutting down on commute time. So what COVID and the pandemic in general has done is just accelerated some of these trends. Digitization, this was a trend, all this virtual walkthrough, augmentation that you've been talking about. We were doing that, but we're going to, it's been macro charged and it's going to come into full focus. Things like shared spaces. I think the one big takeaway was like a Zoom space, because I think a lot of us are having these one-on-one meetings and we don't want to disturb the open workplace. So we go into these deep work pods. But again, we were doing deep work pods before as well. I think bringing and engaging women back into the workforce is going to be a key feature. Wellness is a huge move within office design. So in McKinsey, we have treadmills, we had a TRX band. No one's expecting you to do, your full gym workout, but have a little walk, get your 1,000 steps in when you're doing a call, and just stretch out with the TRX band. So you have to change your mentality and stop putting gimmicky spaces in your office. So like that foosball table that you play on once and then no one touches. Let's get rid of these gimmicks,
Not a fan then.
That's kind of my thinking. No.
Foosball tables and lazy boys. We're now going to TRXs and walking pads.
Yeah.
More healthy.
I mean, we're healthy, right? I mean, I don't get time to exercise most days. So if I'm having a Zoom call or a phone call, and if I can at least get 2,000 steps in, bloody brilliant. And I can work up the rest 8,000 somewhere else, which would be fantastic.
No, I think you're right. I don't think it was I don't think there was any major change. The Zoom, I think the fact that video calls, you look at someone that has a role around a region or the Middle East and North Africa, regional managers, sales directors, these country managers, vice presidents, they were flying all over the place, and now they can do everything majority remotely, and they maybe only fly once a quarter rather than once a month. So it does have a positive impact on companies, from that perspective as well.
Yeah, and the environment as well. But I have to say, like on the flip side, I would do like 2 flights a month pre-pandemic, right? Which meant, yes, I compromised on time with my family, time in the studio, all of that kind of stuff. But on the flip side, I got my best work done when I was alone on the plane. For some reason, I know they have Wi-Fi, but I would always switch off my phone. And it was 8 hours or 12 hours of uninterrupted work. And a lot of creativity does come from solitude when you don't have 2 pesky kids or 17 employees asking or grasping for your attention,
And
a lot
husband.
of good things do come out. And a husband, yeah, he's low maintenance. He's low maintenance. I'll let him off the hook. But so on the flip side, I do miss that. So I'm doing pretend pretend commutes to Abu Dhabi now just so I can get like thinking time, or to Sharjah or something to get thinking time in.
Quite right. No, and I understand where you're coming from with that. I had, and it's unfortunate I was literally there for a whirlwind visit to Dubai for literally 2.5 days, or we would have absolutely caught up. It will come soon because the flights are open now. So when things settle down, we will of course have that cup of tea or a glass of wine.
Yeah.
But when I came back, I had to quarantine for 7 days. The client that we were engaging with said, "No offense, but we're not coming to Qatar. You have to come here and you can quarantine." And I got so much work done in that 7 days. Obviously, didn't have that time at home, and it's hard to work from home now because the children are literally 5 days a week home learning. So that 7 days in a hotel was quite quite productive actually.
Yeah.
You just
I
had
bet it was.
like, well, am I going to sit here and wallow and watch television for 7 days, or I'm going to get some stuff done, which I absolutely did. You I've been enjoying your social media since we became acquaintances and friends, and tell us a bit about the advert that you did, because it was pretty special. It was good fun.
Okay, I'm going to first bust this myth around social media, right? I've been doing social media for 8 years. And when I first started doing it, everybody was like, "Oh my God, my work can speak for itself. I don't need to be out there." Can I use the word bullshit? I'm just going to use
Yes,
it. Okay,
that's my
BS.
podcast.
Okay, BS. It is a free marketing tool. If you're not using it, you're really missing a trick. And it's not like I go on social media and say, "Hey guys, look at this new bag I've got, or my new shoes." No, I'm talking about my work. I'm talking about my process. So let's separate those two. I'm not pretending to be an influencer. I have no interest in that. I went to 8 years of architecture school. If I wanted to be an influencer, I would have probably dropped out at 18. So I'm using social media as a marketing tool for my work, and I'm proud of my work. So why not sing and shout about it? If I don't do it, who's going to do it for me, Simon? So that's number one. So people have to drop this stigma around social media. It's not vacuous. It's the stuff we do, at least on our page. I'd like to think it's intelligent, and it's got a sense of humor. So it's got personality, but it's also intelligent stuff. And it's slightly narcissist, but it's not individual narcissist. It's about the work. So that's number one. Number two, it's when you do that, obviously you attract brand reach as well. 2 years ago, LG came to me and they wanted to do a campaign around the products. And we get these requests all the time, and I pick and choose them. Obviously, I don't do that influencer stuff, so I pick and choose who I want to collaborate with and who I want to work with. LG was a fantastic brand collaboration, and then recently Porsche approached us and they were like, "Oh, we'd love to do your story." I was like, "You, Porsche, like my favorite car brand in the world, you want to do a story on me? This is hilarious."
Mine too. That's why I brought it up, because I'm a massive Porsche fan. I've had one old model, but I need to get the new one. That's what I'm working towards anyway.
Yeah, there we go. We all need that kind of, and that was my big midlife kind of goal to, I'm 40. I just turned 40 in February, and I wanted a nice car before I got there. So coincidentally, I bought a Porsche last year, and they didn't know about this. They were like, "It's a new ad." I was like, "Which car is it for?" And they were like, "It's for the Panamera." I was like, "Are you kidding me? That's what I drive." And they were like, "You drive a Panamera?" And it was like the stars were aligned. And this and again, it's not frivolous. I chose Porsche because, first of all, it's a brand that resonates with me. It's the car that I actually drive. And when they said they wanted to do a story on me, and I was like, "Oh, what kind of story? Like, it's gonna be like cheesy?" They're like, "No, just kind of your projects and talk about your journey." I was like, "Yeah, great." And they wanted my kids to be a part of it. And I was like, "Wow, that's pretty cool. I can show this at my kid's wedding. I mean, it's all about me, but who cares?" But it was it was a fun collaboration. And yeah, it was just a bit of fun. And sometimes, when we get all serious with just architecture and design, it's kind of nice to have a little bit of glamour once in a while. And I think Porsche added that glam.
Of course, absolutely. I absolutely loved it. And you were showcasing your work. You were showcasing your personal brand. It was a bit of family orientation in there, and that is very ironic. But why not? They should have researched you before that. We should have figured out that you're driving a Porsche. Have a look at your customer database, Porsche. Come on. No, it was fantastic. And so, how long ago did you do that? Because it only came out. It was only published 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, very recent. We shot and filmed the ad in November. So, ages ago, and it's a whole new campaign for them. It's about how your drive defines you. And again, it's something that resonated so closely with me. And yes, they just released it a couple of weeks ago. So it's been quite exciting to see it kind of, on big screen. It was interesting. It was good fun.
No,
It
it was
was a
good
fun
fun.
project.
Seriously, congratulations, and also congratulations on the amount of accolades, and how your profile has continued to rise. We've only known each other for a little over a year, but you've been very successful with your personal awards and your company awards in the past, let's say, 6 months. How does it make you feel to get those? Are you a little bit coy and shy, or is it elements of pride, or a bit of both?
Simon, it's, I've never been, okay, no, I'm going to take that back. When I was in my 30s, it was all about the awards. It was like, oh, what can I get? What international award? What local award? But I think as you grow older and you kind of mature and you're comfortable in your own skin, you realize that you don't really need a pat on the back. The real award for me is kind of having an amazing team that's engaged with their work, a client that's happy, repeat business. Because, if I take my awards too seriously, what if I don't win anything this year? And then what? Am I going to go into massive depression and be like, oh, I'm the world's worst designer? So you kind of have to accept everything on balance. So the awards are great. Listen, I love awards, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to attach my identity or my sense of success or accomplishment to an award decided by a jury of 5 people who might
Who may
find my
never be
design.
clients. They may never be clients. Surely the biggest award is the clients you work with and seeing their faces and the reactions you alluded to earlier.
Absolutely, and that is the biggest prize for me. So
The
yeah,
big-
they're great to have, but
the biggest award and
don't
the biggest
nobody.
reward is seeing your work coming to fruition and the reaction on the client's face, and that's what we mentioned earlier. So while you get something in writing or something physically to commemorate and recognize what you've done, nothing will take it away from the reactions that you get from the people that, in essence, pay the invoices. That's why we do
Yeah,
what we do.
exactly. I mean, it's funny because also like the awards are great, but they don't pay the school fees or the wage bills,
Absolutely not.
Something else does that. It's your
No, it's not.
portfolio of work. So I'm gonna put my money on that and spend
Yeah.
my time
And you
worrying about where the work's coming from.
touched on it there about your team. It's not just about how you feel, it's the pride in the team and recognizing the work that they do. So rather than receiving the awards, why not be the one to give the awards to the team that have actually helped make it happen?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've never really understood this concept of a star architect. Anything that comes out of a studio is not Pallavi Dean. It's genuinely Roar. It's a whole bunch of talented people that come together to create magic. And I think, like again with the awards, because it's a great night out. I don't even go. I'll be like to the team, why don't you guys go? Have a good night out. Enjoy your success. Go up on stage, collect it. And again, I think this only comes with age and a level of maturity because I was the one hungry for the awards not long ago, 10 years ago, but I'm kind of over it, and I'm so proud of myself that I've come on the other side and I can just acknowledge I'm good enough without having that external kind of pat on the back.
Without someone else telling you, then you believe it in yourself. I should have asked you this question probably closer to the start, but your signatures and a lot of your social media shows formerly Pallavi Dean Interiors, which then emerged into Roar. Give us a bit of a background on where and why that changed. What was the thought process to create a new brand rather than an individual brand?
Yeah, that's interesting. So, listen, I never wanted this to be a company. I had my first child, and I remember I was passed up for a promotion while I was on maternity leave. And I was like, really? You're still doing this in this day and age? It's the 2000s. And I remember, again, I just wanted flexibility. I'm a grown up, I get my work done. I wanted to leave when I wanted to hang out or go to a, whatever recital or what have you, but I didn't have that flexibility in the workplace. So I just started freelancing and it just snowballed. So it was very organic. I went from a guest bedroom in our home to doing a 300 key hotel and a hospital and a workplace in Oman. And I was like, oh my God, I need people to help me out. So because it happened so organically, I just did the first name that came to my head when I started the company, Pallavi Dean Interiors, because, me in a guest room, that's just me. But as we grew, it wasn't just me. It was a whole bunch of talented people. And I thought it was a bit narcissist to have just my name on the door. And that's when I started the brand disassociation. And Roar came in because we just had a brainstorming session with a few of us in the office, a couple of glasses of wine. And we just thought, what would kind of convey fierce, playful, feline, because we're 90%, like 98%, I think, female. We're 17 people, we're 16 women and one male in the team.
Who's
So
the
what
dude?
would,
What does he
oh,
do?
who's the dude?
How
I
does
know.
he feel?
He's loves it. He just loves all the attention. He's loving it. But again, like it was just, we wanted a name to encapsulate all of our energy, and Roar was that transition. And because people wanted that brand association, they didn't want to know that I've just disappeared somewhere. I'm still very hands-on with the business. So we've still kept that formally, it's like the artist formerly known as Prince.
Prince.
I like
Bless you.
I like that
That's the first
connection
thing
there.
I see when it's formerly known as. It's like that kind of resonates with Prince. Well, the
Yes, I'm
hairstyle's
going for the
kind of
Prince.
there. There's a little bit of the hairstyle there. Why not?
It's Purple Rain. Okay, I'm just embodying Prince. I'm channeling him through.
I'm waiting for you to say that you actually your image is based on Prince. It's not. I get it. It's not.
Stop it now,
all
Simon.
yours. All yours.
This is me, 100%.
I know. No, that's good. That's fantastic. And it's been really successful. So when was that transition? When did you flip it into the company side?
That was 3 years ago now. Wow. Long time ago. 3 years. We should drop formerly known as. I think everybody knows we're Roar now.
We're going to do it now. Yeah.
Yeah. We're good. So 3 years ago.
3 years has flown by, I'm sure. And I'm sure your tenure when you started on your own has flown by as well. To finish off, listen, thank you so much. I know you're really, really busy. I know you've got a lot on at the moment, maybe slightly quieter. I don't know how you find the month of Ramadan, if it's actually the same. If anything, I find it more busy in Ramadan because everyone else has less hours and we tend to have more hours and more work to do. But we wouldn't have it any other way. But sincerely, thank you so much for agreeing to appear. And it's great to see you and chat about the things that we love. I think you're giving me a bit more inspiration as well, because I've not been nervous. I mean, we've known each other and we've spoken many, many times. I don't think you could ever say I'm a nervous character. But when the social media conversation, when we were talking about it, you mentioned that it's not a case of pushing your work into people's faces. It's about showcasing what you do to inspire others, whether it be companies, whether it be designers, because I'm sure you've got many friends in the world, contractors such as me. I love seeing your designs. And of course, we do elements of design for those that don't want to engage external parties. And we obviously use that for our inspiration with our team. But what I've found I was a bit hesitant about was education-based marketing, where we have a lot of conversations with designers, if you don't mind me saying, as well as clients, as well as real estate agents or organizations and project management companies about Qatar in particular, and about that education. And I think you're giving me the inspiration to really stop procrastinating. And just because some people might know what you talk about or what I talk about, is to put more of that education-based marketing out there with regards to the build side of things. We would never pretend. We would always come to you for the inspiration.
Just us, no other designers, obviously.
Absolutely, of course. But to get that inspiration from people like you, it's not the most exciting and sexy of conversations when you talk about build, but I do think it's very, very important. And I think that's one of the things that I and we as an organization can bring to the table with letting people know what is out there. When you look at the approval factors that are needed from fire life safety systems, like I said, it's not sexy. It's not, great from a visual perspective. That's where the design comes in. But how important do you think that element is to be portrayed to clients as well as the inspiration? Do you feel that there is still an importance in that as well? I'm interested in your thoughts.
It's the 100%. I mean, you know me, I'm just a very practical, functional person. That's the bones of the project, okay? Anything else is plastic surgery. Nobody cares about the lipsticks and stockings. You got to make sure your bones, your structure, the foundation of your project is right. FLS, acoustics, MEP, all of that stuff. And you know how much work we did on the front end, even on the MEP. Yes, I'm a designer, but I mean, I'm an architect. I understand how supply and return works, you know, and we have to coordinate that. So I think that's absolutely important. And educating someone who perhaps is not practicing in Doha on the regs, on the approvals, on FLS, I know I'd watch it, you know, and I know I'd tune into that kind of content. And I think clients would too.
Thank you. I'm now going to do it.
Fantastic. I look forward to it.
But you never, you know, the design is the sexy stuff. And you talk about, you know, bricks and mortar. Let's put it into simple UK terms. It's not ideal, but it still needs to be portrayed out there. And you know, when you're looking at something like social media, you've got this free marketing tool that you can utilize. So hopefully it's gonna fly and it's gonna be of interest. Pallavi,
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for having me.
Start of your week. I think we've had some great fun. Hopefully we'll do it again sometime, and maybe we'll do it face to face when I can get over to Dubai.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Good to see you, Simon.
You too. Stay there just for a couple of minutes while I end the show. Thank you very much for tuning in to Space Design and Build with my guest, wonderful Pallavi Dean. This has been episode 3. This will go out next week. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.